Hi, this is Dean DeMarzo, and you're listening to Relatively in Tune, where we talk to creative people and the people close to them. Today, our guest is Spencer Bebon from the band Big Honey, who is also a tour manager for the band Melt. We get to talk a lot about that. And his sister, Avery Bebon, who's an actress and filmmaker.
Hi, I'm Avery Bebon. I'm an actor living in LA. And that's my brother, Spencer.
I'm Spencer Bebon. I'm a musician based in Brooklyn. But on top of that, I also help run a music studio with a bunch of my friends who are also musicians who I grew up with. And then I tour manage for the band Melt. And I see you guys have that lovely poster right behind you.
Fantastic show.
So I got to ask, what show did you guys get that at?
The Brooklyn one.
Brooklyn Steel.
Okay, so Brooklyn Steel?
Yeah, back in, was it November, I think?
Sounds right.
That was on like November 16th. I remember that
Tour
one.
manager, knowing the dates there.
The thing is also, like, I might have actually sold that to you guys because, like, on top of TMing, I also run all of their merch as well.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
So it's
you
so
were
awesome.
out of the shirt, man. Like,
yeah, we were. That was our last show of the run, so we were like running low. But that's like one of my favorite parts about the job is like when we get to like these cities that we've visited before and stuff, or seeing like the poster on the wall, I get to like see these people who were at shows previously, and it's like, oh man, like I get to like see you guys face to face again, which is really nice.
that is
That's
cool.
awesome.
I don't think I really put the two together that would have been a thing, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So how did you get that job? I'm curious.
It was kind of like a serendipitous thing. Like, it's funny. I was like actually like a Melt fan when I was in like college and just outside of it. Like most people who are in the Meltverse, like Sour Candy popped up on my Spotify playlist like back in like 2018 or something. And then one of my good friends, Graham Hazard, ended up filling in on drums for a show they did at Brooklyn Steel a few years ago, opening for Group Love. And through that, like he just introduced us, my friends and I, like to the group. We all started becoming friends, and Colin Frazier, who helps run the music studio that I work with and actually does front of house sound for the band. He ended up like we were friends with them, and they just like at last minute needed somebody to run sound for them on their 2022 tour. So he started working with them, and then kind of like one thing led to the next. Like we just all became better friends. And then about a year ago, they were just in need for somebody to run merch for their run with Green Sky Bluegrass. And I just happened to be available and, was like, yeah, like I'll go out with you guys and like we'll have some fun. And it ended up just being like an unbelievable couple of weeks. And then kind of, like I said, just like one thing after the other, like they then needed a tour manager for their fall run. And here we are now.
That's so
awesome.
cool.
What does that look like making the jump from, I mean, had you managed a tour before? Are those logistics in your like skill set? Where did that come from?
Absolutely not. No. It was one of those things where, so I was very lucky, like on the fall tour, there was somebody who was actually TMing the first half of it and then had to leave because he was on retainer with another band. So I had like an amazing just like teacher in all of this who like from the first day of fall tour, just like really like took my hand and was like, hey, like, here are the broad strokes of this job, and like I'm just going to teach you how to like navigate this brand new terrain, which I'm like extremely thankful for, because it's funny, like I feel like it's one of those jobs that there's not really, at least in my like experience, I've never heard of like any like programs like that you could learn about it in school. It's kind of like a, hey, like you just might know somebody and you get thrown into the deep end and you either sink or swim. So yeah, was very fortunate to have like gotten that like guidance from my mentor for this opportunity. And now, I'm just kind of their guy doing that, on this spring run and, hopefully for the future, which is really great.
I will say that it's really funny. We grew up in Connecticut and there was a music festival 20 minutes from our house called Gathering of the Vibes. And our parents were like really in the music scene, and they ended up getting a booth at Gathering of the Vibes to sell Stanley Mouse merch. He was the guy who did all the artwork for the Grateful Dead. And we were in the actual big merch booth for the festival. And so we were friends with all those people. And when we first started going, I was 9. So you must have been 12.
I was like 12. Yeah.
Yeah. But like we've like seen this stuff before and we've done it. And so that's why I thought it was so funny. Like when you like started actually doing it, I was like, no way. It was almost like I was like envious in a way, because I was like, damn, like I remember that from like being little kids. And we did it for like 6 years, but wild.
Yeah, it was like you were saying, like it was a very like, yeah, serendipitous thing because, like we had helped our parents. Like we were out there as like kids, like helping like sell shirts and just kind of like we're working the crowd and stuff at this big like hippie jam band festival, and so to have gotten like that opportunity with them actually like really like aligned with like things I had done in the past, and it was really kind of like almost like the stars just like really aligned in that moment.
That's something that comes up again and again when we talk to people about the careers they've found their way to. It's being there, being ready to say yes to the opportunity. And then also, I think a really big one, like you said, is being ready to learn and learn fast.
Yeah.
And you were fortunate enough to have someone there. Like, that's the perfect transition. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also like to your point of like being able to just jump at that opportunity. At the time, I was just very lucky. I was working like a remote job that was very flexible for me. And I was able to just kind of like tell my manager last minute, like, hey, like I'm going to be on the road. Like I'll be able to like work during the days and stuff like that. I will be like doing this, I'll be on this new adventure. And I was lucky that, they were really supportive of that. But like, had I been working in like a brick and mortar location or had something that was more in person, it just wouldn't have happened for me. So it's all very lucky.
Do you still juggle that job with tour managing and also working at the studio?
Thankfully, no. I've been able to shed that since like last summer. And now I'm able to like really fully put my efforts into TMing, running the studio, and then running Big Honey as well.
Is TMing always you have to be on the road with the band, or can that change for different bands?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like TMing is very much like a boots on the ground situation, because, and again, this is something that like I, recently learned is Melt's agents, they're the ones who are booking all the shows and putting these contracts in place with these venues. And it's really my job as their TM to be at the venue, just like executing those things, making sure that, hey, like I'm advancing with these venues, sometimes 3 weeks to a month in advance, to make sure that, they have everything that, is required from our end to have a successful show. And that like they're aware of like our schedule and our needs, whether it's from a hospitality standpoint or a scheduling, or we need to make sure that they have like a certain like shielded cable for our like front of house console. And then ultimately like, settling with the venue at night, which is very much, like I think is an in-person thing to make sure that, they have that bridge between the band and then, these venues and the venue owners.
Right. Because the band needs to focus on like getting into the space of being ready to perform. They can't be, working with where do we load in, any of that stuff.
Oh yeah. No, exactly. It's and
just go to sleep and get on the bus.
Yeah.
And
100%. And that really is like my main job with them. And I love to do it because like they're like good friends of mine and like they are like amazing people and they work really, really hard. So I think that like anybody who's in that position, like you just need that support to have a successful tour, because tour is a bear. It can be very like grueling out there for some people. So like I take a lot of pride in being able to kind of take care of the more like administrative, like the logistical things, so that like they can just focus on getting to the venue and like playing the best show that they can.
Both of you are musicians. You both come from clearly a musical, creatively focused family. So in merch at hippie festivals at age 9.
Yeah.
So Avery, why don't you walk me through like what road both of you had taken growing up through singing and other creative pursuits?
So Spencer's older than me by 3 years. And obviously, like I looked up to him as a kid, but like would never admit it.
Of course not.
I came out of the womb like fully just like determined. I was like, well, I'm famous. and I'm the youngest of 4. And so that seems, I guess, very on brand now. The youngest child syndrome definitely hit me. But it was Spencer actually found his love for guitar first. And he started, how old were you?
When I started playing, I was in 3rd grade. Yeah.
You were 3rd grade. So he started playing in 3rd grade, but I was a singer from like, I don't even know, a young age. We actually did musical theater, summer camp, a cabaret summer camp together.
Nice.
We did.
But the most crucial thing about all of this is that we hated each other the entire time.
What?
I don't believe that.
No, like like it was bad. From the jump. I don't know why. He like came at me. He was like, oh, I used to be the youngest. And I was like, well, you're not anymore. And I was like, here we go. And like I
guess everyone is at one point, right?
Yeah.
And we were at each other's throats. And so Spencer formed his first band in 4th grade.
Wow.
called I Hate Avery.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
And he formed his first band. And I remember I was like really jealous because at this point I had discovered that I could write songs. And so I was writing and I told my entire family because like I said, I was famous. I told my entire family that I had a band called Rango Tango.
It's a good name.
It wasn't true. And we were
Or solo act, something, the pen name, it's a thing.
Exactly. So we were always just fighting for that. But so Spencer got his band. And then I think the first time that it started kind of melding more than just like cabaret camp, obviously I found my love for acting more than being in music. I am a singer though. I love singing. But I started performing with Spencer when we'd have family parties. And my parents would be like, come on, get your sister up there.
Yep.
Come on, have her sing a tune. And Spencer, what would you always tell me I was singing?
Yeah, we had this joke. We'd be like, yeah, Avery, like, you can always come up when we do Jessica by the Allman Brothers.
Oh. It's an instrumental piece. There's no vocals.
It's an instrumental song. Yeah.
Beautiful guitar solos, but
Beautiful song. But yeah, that was our little way of like poking fun because like Avery was saying, yeah, like we would have this like huge like Memorial Day party every year. Like there was always like a parade that went right by our house and like our parents would have all of our friends over and stuff after. And I was always kind of like the entertainment because I just like always had bands and stuff. But it became actually like such an awesome thing that we got to do together, like as we got older. Because I mean, I was either playing guitar or singing in my group, but like I always knew, like even when I like hated her, I always know like, well, Avery has a really good voice. So like she can come up and she can do like Valerie or something like that. And that ended up being like a really nice, like bonding moment, like for us musically.
So then you started to not hate each other after that.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah.
We started to really not hate each other actually when he went to an all-boys high school and they were holding auditions for their a cappella group for women to come in. And I auditioned and I got in. So when he was a senior and I was a freshman, we were in the same a cappella group.
Oh,
and that's when the bonding really started. We had to go to rehearsal together once or twice a week. And it created spaces. If you don't create the space to really start bonding, the space won't be there.
Yeah.
And that is really like, we were cool before that, but that was when we really became super close because now I think you could tell like, he's like my best friend. Like I really couldn't do anything without him. So that was the space that brought us together.
So you're both pursuing art professionally. Avery, you're working on a new short film that's coming out soon, right?
We're in post. We're in post on it
okay.
right now. I've had a few other shorts, but this has been like my baby. And
That's awesome.
Funny enough, Spencer actually composed the music for it.
You did?
I
Nice.
did.
Wow.
I scored it, which was like, that was it in itself. Avery saying all the stuff about, us like bonding through like her coming up and like singing with me and us doing a cappella together. Like that was all really great. And I felt like it all kind of like led up to this where like, hey, we're adults now and we're able to like collaborate together on a project. Was honestly like always like a big goal of mine to do it, whether it was with her or somebody else in our family, and to be like, like to have scored it and have been a part of her art in that way was honestly like an honor for me.
That's awesome. Now, I have attempted to score things and it never quite panned out. I've always stayed in like more of the pop songwriting world. How did you bridge the gap? Was this your first time composing for film?
It was, yeah. And I had done like a couple of like scoring things in the past. Like one of my best friends and, musical kind of like partners in my life, Kit Conway, who part of an incredible band called Stello, actually did a lot of writing with Ron and Marlo on the most recent Melt album. But he like worked for like a jingle house for like a number of years. And as like kind of like a little like fun thing we would do in the house, like we would just like score for like commercials and stuff, and nothing like of mine ever got selected, but like it was just something that I kind of like did in my free time a little bit. So when Avery came to me like with that proposition, I had like an idea of like the basics, like the building blocks of like what do I look for in these things, whether it's I'll try to like kind of sync up like the rhythm of like somebody walking with like that's like kind of like I'll use that as like that's my main kind of tempo right here. And I'll use that to kind of like create like the world around the visual. And what was also really great is that Avery had a great director, and her team just gave me like really great guidance off the back. We're like, hey, like we're looking for something that's more like indie rock in this scene here and is like capturing kind of like this essence. And then in this next one, we want it to be more like Wes Anderson, like imagine like a car chasing scene, one of those. They sent me some references and things like that, where it was a really fun like challenge for me to try to like adapt to all of that different direction I was given, and then be able to like get on Zoom with them and review these things, and really curate those tunes of like, hey, like, am I in the right path here? Like, if not, like, please let me know, because like I want this to be as accurate to like what you guys are envisioning as possible. So yeah, that was really fun, and I'm really excited for the finished product to be out soon.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. And that's so nice that you two got to work together. That's always something we ask, we it always leads towards like, you guys going to collab, but you already have, and that's incredible.
And your
That's
parents must be so excited that you're doing something really fun and exciting together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's also funny too is we have two other siblings who are, our older brother is a writer and our older sister is a painter. So
God.
we've always kind of had this like funny like family idea where we're like, we could make like a full movie. So like Avery will like, my brother will write it, Avery will star in it as like the lead actress and help curate that. I'll make the music, and then our sister will do like all of the art and promotion for it.
Yeah.
So cool.
That's a whole production
Yeah.
house there, man.
Yeah.
So where does that come from? Are your parents artists, musicians?
Yeah, I mean, that was the funny thing. I think that they didn't pursue what they truly wanted in a way. And so they weren't artists in their day-to-day life, except our mother did end up starting to act when I was in high school. She got back into it because she wanted to be an actor when she was growing up, and she did act, when she was in college and things like that. And so she has gotten back into it now since then. And our dad is a poet, and he's just like this classic rock guy, and he just knows everything there is to know about classic rock. So he gave us those fundamentals.
It's so funny how a lot of people who have come on here said their family is absolutely not musically inclined at all. But then this is kind of nice that they're all just kind of artistic and have kind of like at least the love for it and try to like push their kids to do that. I guess actually Leo's mom
True.
She said she always was interested in music and never had the opportunity to do that. And then she pushed Leo from Bermuda Search Party
Of course, yeah.
to go
Yeah.
pursue music after that, because it was something she didn't have growing up. So it's kind of familiar.
Yeah, and I mean, my dad too, played guitar, bass, drums in a band growing up, and ended up pursuing. He ended up being a graphic designer, but we had guitars sitting around the house my whole life, and there was always that encouragement to pursue it professionally. Was that the case for you guys? There was the support to say like, yeah, go for this as a career.
Absolutely. And I think that is something that I'm like honestly most like thankful for our parents, is that, they cared about a couple of things, right? They cared that we were safe and that we were, getting a good education and like not like flunking out of school. And outside of that, they gave us like a lot of, liberty in our lives to explore and do the things that we wanted to do and that made us happy. And I think kind of to Avery's point before, like, I think both of our parents, had they been born in like our generation, would have pursued a more artistic path. Like our dad actually like tells us this story where he was in his early 20s, had just graduated from college, and all he wanted to do was be a poet. And he had come to our grandfather and was like, had this whole plan. He's like, yeah, I just want to like live in the city and write poetry. And our grandpa was just like, yeah, no, you're not. Like, you need like to make money. Like, what are you thinking? And I think that was unfortunately just, like a product of those times where there was so much pressure to just get married and buy a house when you were young, and, really like care so much about like financial gain was like a mark of success, where I think that our father was unfortunately like really influenced by that. And I don't think that he really like wanted that for us. So I have a lot of respect for them, and so far it's going, like,
Yeah, because like, Spencer and I, he kind of mentioned it, but we both went through shifts. Like mine was crazy. Mine was 2 years ago, almost exactly. And I got laid off from my big girl job because I didn't go to school for acting. Spencer didn't go to school for music. Brooks didn't go. Oh, he kind of went to school for writing. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
But my parents said to me, and it was really funny. They were, of course, super supportive of me, but they were like, you're not allowed to go to school for acting. because Amy Poehler went to school for political science. And so they were like, they were like, you know what you're doing. So you just have fun with it. And I was like, oh, that makes sense to me. So once I graduated with my film and TV degree, I was on the producing track. And so I was working for a studio out in LA. And then I got another job and I was, going up the corporate ladder. And like, thank God I got laid off, because I took like a really hard look at my life and I was like, I don't have the quality of life that I want, even though I have money, even though I have security in this way. Like, I'm not doing what I love anymore. At least when I was in college, I was in the a cappella group. I was like doing other things. Like, that was no longer in my life. So I was missing any form of artistic and creative freedom in any way. And so I didn't try and find another job. I didn't do that. I became a personal assistant, and I actually joined an acting school out in LA, and I graduate in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Awesome. Congratulations.
So I had to figure that out, and it took getting a kick in the ass to like really get myself out there. And like 2 years later, like, yeah, I don't have a ton of money. I don't have a ton of security, but I'm really much happier with my life. And like Spencer had that jump like last year, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was a really similar situation. So like I got my degree in finance and business management in college. And I think that for me, like I just knew that I was going to play music and be involved in that in some degree for my entire life. So I didn't really feel the need to like go to school to like learn how to like perform or something, because I'd been like playing out with bands since I was like, in 4th, 5th grade. But, through all of that, out like when I got into the real world, I ended up just kind of having to grasp at like the first thing that came my way. And that was just like working in tech. So I worked for 2 separate tech companies for around 4 years out of school. And really similar experience to Avery, like it was secure. It was nice to have that, that constant paycheck, that direct deposit into my account every 2 weeks. But I just found myself feeling just really unhappy with like the direction that my life was going in, because while I was still doing, music stuff on the side and in my free time, I was finding it harder and harder to like find like the like really like the mental and like emotional capacity to like connect with that stuff, because so much of my effort every day was just going into sending emails and going on sales calls and things like that, to the point where, I was seeing my friends around me being more involved in the arts and in their kind of like day-to-day jobs. And I just saw how happy they were. And I wanted that really badly. So I made like a very conscious decision to drop tech. And, it's definitely, it's not, the money isn't as free flowing as it once was, but I feel really, strongly that I'm laying the foundation for my passions right now. And, we're doing all of the work in our late 20s right now, so that, in our 30s and 40s, that those things I just believe will come, as long as you are doing the thing that you love and you are surrounded by people who support you in those endeavors.
Yeah.
It's so inspiring, because I've been thinking about doing that, honestly, myself. And I am unfortunately in my 30s at this point and have gotten stuck in that job that I'm super unhappy with for 11 years, not for what I wanted to go to school for. I wanted to study music, didn't make the music program, wound up going for communications with a film and media background, and then went in insurance for 11 years. And I've been stuck and still am stuck in insurance for 11 years. And this is the first time where we've made the conscious decision to start this. And I think I'm going to go part-time, potentially.
That's
amazing. Making the jump.
Which is not like the full jump like you guys have, but and I'm trying to make connections, just do the thing I love and make myself happy. So that's super inspiring, and it's so nice that you guys are doing it while you're young.
Yes.
And I kind of look at him, and he does what he loves, and he works in music full time, and it's definitely inspiring to watch all of you guys do that.
And I'm so happy you are making that jump too. I'm really proud of you. It's as someone who, like you said, you're laying the foundation right now. So hopefully in your 30s, this can really just keep paying back those dividends even more.
Totally, yeah.
And I'm really, really so lucky to be on, knocking on wood here, the other side of that. I did YouTube for, I think, 14, 15 years before I ever made any money on there. And now it's my full-time job. I'm very thankful for it to be going wonderfully. But that took until like my mid-30s for that to hit.
But you took the jump though, like 3 or 4, was it 3 years ago?
I did. It was about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
3.
Did you have another part-time? Because I made the jump, but I still work part-time because I have to. Did you or no?
He did.
I was working at a music store full-time for about 12 years. I was working retail during the day, teaching guitar till like 9 or 10 at night during the night, and then working on YouTube in the hours outside of that.
It did pay off, you know,
It
like
did.
at the end of the day, you were able to stabilize the YouTube stuff first before you decided to quit.
I did. I waited until I was making more on YouTube than I was at my day job for like 6 months straight. And then I said, okay, I
Nice.
feel good enough about this. Got some savings. I'm going to make this jump.
And you cut back, so you weren't teaching as much. You would start like
Yeah.
slowly shedding the layers of
Yeah. Something I was thinking about when you were talking about your father saying he wished he pursued poetry growing up, that in that time, I don't know what the path to monetizing being a poet was, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, now you've got Patreon, you've got TikTok and YouTube, all these avenues. I follow so many poets who do just like visual storytelling on YouTube, and it's incredible. And I mean, back in the day, you could get signed as a musician for sure. You send your demo out to labels. Do you send a demo of poems to a publisher?
I
Like,
guess you could be a lyricist.
yeah, but that is to say, we have so many more avenues to be independent creators now. Avery, you created your own short film that's coming out soon. Spencer, you have your band Big Honey, as well as going on tour with Melt, who is an independent band.
Yeah, and plus the studio too.
Yeah, and the studio.
It's crazy.
I don't know if there really was like a solid plan, or like I think at that point like you just had to like maybe write a book and send it out to hopefully get published. But you're right, yeah, we're really lucky that, you know, in this day and age we have a lot of resources to leverage to kind of like, you know, work, you know, and try to like make these dreams come to reality, and it's a grind, you know, there's no doubt about that, but it's not like it used to be, you know, and we can at least lean on that a little bit more.
Yeah. Because, like, on that point, just to be like, you know, totally real, no matter what job you have, you're going to have the hard days, even if you are pursuing your dreams, even if you're doing it. Because auditions, like submitting your, like, you know, it's just like, it is a grind. And just as much as like you guys, like, writing songs, like doing these performances, like posting on TikTok, waiting for something to blow up. And I'll say that, like, you know, one of those lows was like, even like last week, Spencer and I were on the phone and he was like, yo, like, how are you? And I was like, fine. And then it was just like, just full, because sometimes it's hard. And sometimes we have those moments, and like he's come to me in those moments too. And like you have to lean on each other in that way. So it's not to paint it in this completely rose colored, you know, because there are really tough moments, but at least I can know in my freaking heart that 20 years from now, I'm not going to be like, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
No regrets.
I mean, the hard times are, there's going to be hard times if you're doing what you love, and there's going to be hard times if you're working at a finance tech company.
Yeah.
You'd probably rather be having the hard times for the thing you love,
Yeah.
given the choice.
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a
Yeah.
doubt. I do think also though that there's like a level of like, hey, even like not to say that like everyone has to be the starving artist, but that like there is beauty that comes from those things, you know, and it's the struggle and it's the path of actually getting to where you want to go that, you know, is sometimes can make the most like beautiful art. And like, hey, if I was just like given a career like on like a silver platter and it was just like, hey, I released one song and I'm all of a sudden huge, like I don't think I would appreciate it as much as like, oh, well, the 100 shows I played along the way, you know, like I'm in the midst of that right now, just doing the circuit around Manhattan and Brooklyn and stuff, and I'm having a blast doing that. So,
And it's the people who get that, you know, their very first song gets a billion views. They have no idea how to follow that up.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. Probably.
Whereas if they've written 100
Yeah.
songs before this and this one finally popped, they know they're going to write another 100 songs and be just fine.
Yeah, it's that path. I think I don't know that people would be as happy if you just made it right off the bat. I think it takes a lot of.
It's terrifying. That'd be.
Yeah, I think you're happier now too. When you had a big hit, you felt the need to try to live up to that standard, and then you decided to just write your own stuff and not really.
Yeah, it was when
Put
I
that
decided
pressure
to
on
stop
yourself.
like chasing trends on YouTube and just started like writing what I was excited about at the moment. And I'll have hits. I had a song blow up and get like 12 million streams earlier this year.
Yeah,
And then
yes.
thank you. And it
felt so much better for you. I think you felt like happier because it was what you wanted to
I
do.
felt happier, and I also didn't let it change anything about what I've been doing since then.
Yeah.
I just kept writing more songs, and it's more fun that way than if I keep trying and failing to recapture the thing that worked. I want to hear about Big Honey.
That's what I was going to say.
How
That
this
was my
band
question.
came about, what the the overall story and vision for it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think to accurately capture Big Honey, we have to actually go back to my previous band, which was Rabbit's Foot. And
Great
this
name.
was like my high school, like college band. And pretty much like I'd mentioned, so Avery and I, we grew up in Connecticut, and I actually met almost all of my best friends now in a program called School of Rock.
Everyone
Yeah.
keeps saying that.
One of my best friends runs one of those here. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So we were part of the Fairfield, and back then it was even the Paul Green School of Rock before it got franchised. This is like 2008, 2009. And, from that program, it was the first time that I was like meeting kids my age who actually had like the exact same interests as me, where I was like, oh my God, like I'm meeting these kids who love listening to like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, and we're getting to play these shows together. And from that, created, my first, like some bands and stuff. And Rabbit's Foot was a combination of a lot of those friends that I met through that program. And it was probably like the first, like, really serious project I was a part of, where we were recording music, like in my basement, like spending just like full weeks when we were home from like college on like winter break, just like, miking things up and recording albums and having so much fun with it. And then getting and like packing like our parents' like Suburban with all of our gear, like including like a vintage Hammond M3 organ.
Oh my God.
And we were just like driving to the city, lying to these venues, telling them that we were 21 when we were like 19, and playing shows. And like, that's when I really got like the bug for like playing live. I was like, this is incredible. We are just like having a blast. Like we're all just best friends and doing this thing. And that was a really, really special project for me. And, we played together for a couple of years, had like a couple of fun big nights. Like we got to play like the Gramercy Theater in like 2018, which was like probably like the peak of this group. And then when we all graduated from college, we were all like a grade or two apart. So like I had graduated while a few of them were still in school. And then after graduation, everyone kind of just went their separate ways. Like our guitar player stayed down in Memphis. Our organ player, moved up to LA. And the band like kind of just unfortunately just naturally like just dissipated. And there was no like beef or anything. Like it was just kind of like, hey, like we're just doing our lives now. And this unfortunately is not really going to work out. So I spent like a couple of years, like probably 2 or 3 years while I was living in New York, really lost and confused like musically, because like I had said, like music had just been a part of my life since I was a kid and playing in bands. And I finally like kind of keyed in on like a sound that I really wanted, which was this more kind of soul funk thing that I was starting to see a lot of. Like I remember like hearing Lawrence for the first time and being like, oh my God, like I need horns in my band now. And getting familiar with Melt, and then The Dip, Lake Street Dive. And
these are all my favorite bands.
Yeah, me too. And I was immediately just like so inspired by that. And I just started writing a lot more like soul music. And then it was about 2.5, 3 years ago that I hit up a couple of guys from Rabbit's Foot, the few of us that were still in the Northeast, and was like, guys, like we got to do this. We were making a huge mistake not playing together, and we got a set together and started playing. I was really fortunate to get like hooked up with a couple of like killer players here in the city. I've got Andrew and Michael Golub, who are probably the best at their respected instruments in the city right now. They're a trumpet and sax duo, and they're brothers, and they are absolutely phenomenal. And getting them and a few other guys in there really like brought this group together. We started playing a couple of shows. We, really started to gel, and now we're just having a lot of fun with it. We've got a couple of singles out right now, and have a few more right now that we have slated for the summer. I'm really looking forward to releasing these next couple of ones.
Do you plan on touring with them at some point?
Ideally, yes. It's touring is though, like, in terms of the logistics and, the finances of it all, is something that I think is a little bit down the road. It's also, it's a big band. Like I'm sometimes playing with like 8 players at once. So to be able to afford all of that is sometimes a little difficult. But it's definitely something that's like on the horizon for us, and something that I would love to, get the band to that level.
And in terms of recording and writing, is there an overarching plan there coming up?
Totally, yeah. So we've been tracking a lot over the winter. We do a lot of recording at my studio, Fraser Sound, which is in Williamsburg. And then actually really exciting, a month ago actually, we recorded at a studio called Vinegar Hill in Dumbo. and it was our first time tracking to tape.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Cool.
so we
Fun.
recorded on this like vintage like 24 track old Studer. Like I was saying before, like all of my favorite bands, like The Dip, honestly, like being like those guys are my inspiration.
They're
amazing.
And I feel like all of that has that very like vintage, like retro kind of tapey sound to it,
Mhm.
Yes.
which is something that I've really been striving for. So these next couple of singles are very much kind of like in that realm. And yeah, I've got 3 right now that I'm slating for release just like throughout the summer. And then in terms of the writing process, I definitely like take the lead on writing a lot of the music for the group. And something that's just kind of been a theme throughout my writing, just like throughout my entire life, is these are all like real things for me. I'm not very good at like writing from like a fictional perspective, where like I just like have an idea and like can kind of do the thing that like Fish does, where like they just write like on a
Yeah.
tangent of like something completely random and like funny and quirky. I pull all of my songs and my lyrics just from my real life experiences, and my songs are very much like my story, and it really helps me. I feel like when I'm performing them live, because I can really like connect to them in like a very like tangible way almost.
That's awesome. I come from the literal opposite perspective of
No way.
I've struggled with like accessing those emotions and expressing them well. So I always write from the perspective of the niche I found myself in is writing about video games, writing from the perspective of
Nice.
characters in video games, movies, TV shows. And just now I'm starting to bridge that gap of like, okay, here's this thing this character went through, here's something I'm feeling, and here's how I can relate it. But to come straight from the heart like that, that's so cool and very, very brave and vulnerable, and I'll get there.
I used to write music. I mean, I wasn't very good at it, but I used to write my own songs, and I always used to come to you and be like, I want to write a song with you, but like, I'm not sad or like in a breakup anymore. Like, what do I write about? Like, but I can relate to that too. And also when you said that you like the Dip sound and how it sounds so like old school, I love that. When I first heard the Dip, I thought it was like an older song. And I said,
Because
to you,
they're
like,
doing it the
who
real
is this? How did they get on
way.
this playlist? And then you're like, no, they're like more recent.
Yeah.
And I just love it. I love everything from like the time period way prior.
You grew up listening to a lot of 50s and 60s stuff
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
too.
for
You're
sure.
deep in there.
Yeah,
Right.
I love that, and I always grew up saying like I love singing all these songs, and nobody knew any of the music that I listened to. I was afraid to show my iPod to people in school because I knew people would make fun of me. It wasn't like any of the cool artists people would listen to, but now it's so cool coming into soul pop and that whole genre and feeling like, oh my gosh, I finally feel heard and understood, and like this is my thing. And that community of people too, it's just once you get into that, you have a strong connected community in
everyone's
soul
so
pop.
nice.
Everyone knows each other, everyone in the bands, but also in the fandom. Like
Everyone
we
knows
all know
Nathan.
one another. Yeah, everyone knows Nathan Farrell.
I love Nathan. I love Nathan.
Of course, you do.
Everyone who
says
comes on the show is like, yeah, I
Such
know
a sweetheart.
my friend Nathan Farrell. I'm like, yeah, we know Nathan.
Yeah. Nathan's my vocal coach.
He's great.
Or was anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We were talking about that. And then to kind of respond to that, like I think that it's so true that I feel very strongly that there is just like a soul like revival going on right now.
Yeah.
And there's so many bands that are really killing it. Like we have like the Black Pumas, we've got the Dip, we've got Lake Street Dive, these places, people that are starting to play like MSG and these bigger venues like MGM Fenway, and it's really exciting, and but it's still kind of at that level where it is kind of niche, so like
Yes.
going out to those shows, it's really encouraging to like find these people who we're all so similar, we all are kind of cut from the same cloth. But like there's not that many of us out there right now, so like it's really fun to go to those shows and be able to just meet that community.
But I think it's amazing that you can be like niche and also sell out Madison Square Garden, you know, like Wolfpack, who I wouldn't say they're like soul pop. I think they're on a slightly different road, but I do think you can trace a lot of the modern movement back to them, their growth in the early 2010s. It's a really accessible world of music.
It is.
Still. Yeah.
But also makes the fans feel like included as well, like watching their growth, because we're starting from this like slightly more indie level where we can all
Most
feel
of the
like
artists are independent. Yeah.
special and feel like, oh, this is something that we love and maybe not everyone knows about.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it. And meeting all these people through the podcast too, I feel like it it's cool to finally have people to talk to that understand the songs and the bands that I've loved for years. It's cool.
It's good.
Yeah. And I'll say too, like, that's one of the things that I've picked up a lot from my experience with Melt. And like, meeting these people at the shows every night, I've met so many people over the last year that are like, yeah, like I remember when Melt was playing at Mercury Lounge. And like I was at their show at like, I don't know, like the Sinclair or something like that in Boston. And they're like, and now I get to see them at Brooklyn Steel and Royale. And like, man, like it feels really cool to like be a part of their journey and like watch them grow. And I think that that's just like such a special thing. And it's, yeah, you get to see and you get to kind of know these people too, because I think that another thing that I really love about like this scene is that everybody I've met in it, like nobody is like larger than life. Like everyone's just like a normal person. Everyone is so nice, down to earth, because like there isn't that like kind of global, like, national attention on them. The main focus is just let's make the best music and like let's like give people like an incredible experience during this show.
Yeah. It's the accessibility. It's like sure the accessibility, because what I was thinking about when you were talking, Tori, was actually about how it's funny, like over Christmas, and I think about like over the summer when we all see each other, because the whole family's now spread out across the US. But when we're all together, it's that we play this music and it's generational. And it's like, no one's like, hey, turn that off. It's like, oh, okay. And everyone enjoys it,
Yeah.
But also, yeah.
Have you found, Avery, that there is an equivalent to kind of this like indie soul pop scene in music to filmmaking?
I mean, yeah, I think that it's funny when it's like it gets mainstream in a certain way, and it's kind of like you guys talking about selling out MSG, and then we get people who have obviously been on the scene for a while, but like Wes Anderson was my favorite director for a very long time because I thought that he was doing something that like no one else was, and it was like really interesting characters, but also like really interesting female characters. We had a few years there where we were not getting any sort of interesting female plots, I would say, and a lot of mainstream stuff. So it was cool to see Wes Anderson become mainstream. And then it was even funnier to have so many fans then reject it and be like, oh, well, now it's sold out all the time. And it's like, well, isn't that kind of a good thing? But now you're just seeing so many more directors and filmmakers like popping up who are doing, that same exact thing. And it's really cool. I love it. I mean, that's why like I love television too, because I think television, you can take a lot more, deep stabs at stuff sometimes. And like if you watch like some of the more like avant-garde stuff, I like love it. But I think also we're a little bit behind the ball, or we're just catching up to like a lot of the stuff that Europe's been doing for a while. And I think about specifically in France, they've, I think, been ahead of us in a lot of ways for a long time. So I'm curious to see what happens there. But I mean, Anora won Best Picture, and we can't forget about that. And Sean Baker, he deserved his roses, and I will say that any day. I think that he's awesome. And I remember watching Florida Project, and I watched that, and like, these are all indie films, and he was taking like real people and doing it, and I'm just like obsessed with that. I love the realness of that type of stuff.
I would love to hear more about your film project. About First Aid in a Bet, right?
Yeah, so my best friend and I, Kay, she's a writer and I'm an actor, and we were like, we gotta do something. And she's also incredibly funny. And so I was like, okay, like let's write it together, let's make it together, let's write something, but we both have to star in it. And so we worked on it together. She really took the lead with writing and everything like that, but the concepts are always generated together. And then we wrote this story about, it takes the arc of a one-night stand, but it's about being robbed. So it's First Aid in a Bet, and it's your first time getting robbed and then helping a criminal. And then the criminal leaves you, and you're like, you feel empty afterwards. You're like, oh.
We were just having fun.
Eating a bet, yeah. This was the greatest day of my life. And I think my character does say exactly that. And so it was a true labor of love. We filmed it over just one weekend. And
that's fast.
Yeah. That's the way short films usually have to go. We had a really small budget. One of my really good friends was the director. Spencer was obviously the composer when we got into post.
Yeah.
We filmed at my boyfriend's house. Like it was, and that's what we have to do. Like, you know, we talk about artists leaning on each other. Like we have to. And like, that's how we were able to make it. So it was crazy being an executive producer, a creator, and then being in it, because that was a little stressful, being on set and being like, oh, we got to make sure like that's not in the shot. Like, and like doing all this stuff, which is not a position that I've ever played, you know? I'm usually just like being told what to do.
What was the timeline from like the inception of the idea to when you started filming? How long did that process take?
It was New Year's Day, and then we filmed the weekend of November 18th.
Wow.
Oh.
11 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's like usually a really long process.
I'm thinking on YouTuber time scale where like I'll have an idea this morning and I have most of it done tomorrow night. Like
it's about getting money together because like you got to pay everyone. So,
Yeah. When is that going to come out?
we're hoping, we've just been waiting in post and stuff for like different edits to be done. So, I mean, hopefully like in the spring and maybe not like early summer, but it just depends which route we want to take. If we want to do, you know, like a YouTube premiere, something like that, or if like we can get into any festivals. Because if we like send it into festivals, then I'm obviously going to wait for the festivals. But
Oh, yeah.
it just depends on what we want to do. I mean, this was Kay and I's first project together and like taking that much of a creative chunk out of it. So hopefully it'll just be the first of many.
Yeah.
So
It's gonna be great. And no matter what, like Avery, you gotta have like a nice like red carpet event, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we can all show up. Like I can fly in from New York and like
Yeah.
you know wear a tuxedo and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll wear matching tuxes, so it's like
Yes. No, but we'll do like the Royal Tenenbaums thing. We'll just wear like matching like Adidas tracksuits.
Yes.
that's good.
Yes.
That's very good.
Yes.
Well, it's like when anybody puts out a single, they have like release parties now for everything.
I mean,
So I feel like you could do that too. Just have like
Oh,
a cool,
yeah,
fun release party, watch it somewhere. And
absolutely. That's the plan. That is definitely the plan. But yeah, I'm just excited to really see it like come to life.
putting together a bigger project like that, like I'm working on a music video that's going to take me the next month, and that is like a nerve-wracking experience that's overwhelming me. I cannot fathom something that, I mean, now we're going on a year and 3 months. That is a mind-blowing undertaking. I cannot imagine pulling that off. So that's incredible to me.
do you feel like living in LA really aids that, or do you think you could do that anywhere? Like, what was that drive to move yourself to LA?
The drive was at the end of my program. I had an internship, but it was COVID, so it was remote. But my internship was in LA. And so that was with a film studio. And so my boss became like my mentor, and he was like, you just got to do it. He was like, you got to come out here no matter what you do. Because I was really honest with him. And I was like, you know, I've always wanted to be an actor too. And so that was what the move was. But then just staying out here after I decided I wasn't going to, you know, work at a studio or whatever, and making a short film, I think it lent itself. But it also, if I lived anywhere else, it probably would be a lot easier to do. It's difficult to make stuff within LA because of, well, no, here, you get more manpower, you have more people doing it, but that also probably drives some price up.
Sure. I'm sure.
And you have to worry more, and because it's so congested, you have to worry about, like, we filmed in a park, a half day we did in a park, and I'm kind of exposing myself here, but we didn't get permits because I was like, we'll only be here for 6 hours. And we literally were just like crossing our fingers, hoping that no one questioned us, that we looked legit enough that no one would come up to us. And we are right. But it's like, yeah, it's all of that. So if we lived in like Wyoming or Idaho, it would be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But no, living in LA definitely lends itself, I would say.
Yeah, I think there's like you said, pluses and minuses to it. There's an incredible amount of resources nearby. There's every profession, you know, the best camera operator and lighting designers in the world probably live there. And also, they're also demanding, you know, studio prices a lot of the time, I'm sure. So it's got its ups and downs.
Yeah. But we also do, and I will just promote this, we do need to bring production back to LA. And I will be saying that because we have now outsourced all of the productions that are happening in Hollywood are taking place in other states and other countries because the incentive to film, it's something crazy. You know that New York gives an incentive for filmmakers, $4 billion in tax cuts every year. It's like
bet.
Yeah. And then in LA and like all the different, like New York State, and then it's Massachusetts gives like 6 billion. Like it's crazy.
Wow.
You go to California, get ready, 500,000.
Wow.
There's no incentive to film here, and it's
Wow.
ridiculously expensive. So that's why Hollywood is like kind of like dying a little bit.
Yeah.
It's really sad. So that's why the big movement has been bring your productions back to LA, and hopefully the state can figure out their incentives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say we've noticed they're filming everything right around us right now.
Yeah, they really are.
It really is. Yeah.
A lot of things. Poker Face. There was
Yeah,
something
Poker
else with
Face.
Amy
Avengers Endgame was
Schumer.
like right up the
Oh,
street.
whoa.
Yeah.
Well, one part of it. It was like the
One
battle
part of
scene
it,
or
yeah,
something. Yeah.
All kinds of silly stuff. And yeah, I think that is certainly a factor. And also something I'm just noticing across industries, I think there's a little bit of, for better or worse, kind of decentralization, moving away from the big studios, the big record labels, the big game development studios, out towards these indie productions. As I think we're probably benefiting from it on the independent end, but if you're looking for studio work, that's getting harder and harder. It's a complicated time for sure.
And then you look at A24.
Yeah.
Oh, they were as indie as it gets in 2010. I think that's when The Lobster came out. Like those, it was like so crazy. And now they are the biggest studio in Hollywood. I mean, they're making everything. Everyone wants to be with A24.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Things change so quickly. Both of you, what do you have going on that you'd like to promote? Avery, we have First Aid and a Bet coming out soon.
Yeah.
And any other projects you have coming up?
Just that right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Spencer?
Yeah, so Big Honey, we have our first single coming out in June. It's a song called Better Man that I wrote a little while ago. And we actually just locked down kind of like a single release show, June 26th at Our Wicked Lady, like on the rooftop there.
Nice.
Awesome.
But yeah, outside of that, and obviously going back out on the road with Melt next week for our West Coast run. And then hoping to have some more kind of like Big Honey release dates and shows on the calendar for later this summer, and hopefully even like a small tour this fall.
That'd be so fun.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you to Spencer and Avery for joining us. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Relatively In Tune Pod. And if you like what you heard, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.